example of what a productive and rewarding life of public service looks like. And I should add, it's not near over yet. So Dawn Diener, come on up here and talk.
Thank you very much. That was really nice. Retiring is such a hard word to hear, and I do not confess to retiring, as I'm way too young to retire. But I want to congratulate this year's award recipients. I celebrate you, and I'm honored to be here to speak today. And as I thought about what I wanted to say, two themes came to mind. I wanted to touch on the impact that each of you has made in your communities through your work in the legal field. Both the individuals whose lives you touch directly, but also those who have witnessed your service to others. I also wanted to talk about justice and what it means. It's a word we have repeatedly said here, and it is a word that we repeatedly use in our legal lives. But if you're anything like me, you might have not ever really stopped recently or ever to think about what is justice really, except, maybe when you were in law school and you were forced to study concepts of justice, right? In the movie Philadelphia, I don't know if any of you have ever seen that, the lawyer Andrew Beckett, who is played by Tom Hanks, sues his former law firm for firing him when he contracts AIDS. In one scene, Andrew's lawyer, who's played by Denzel Washington, asks Beckett, "What do you love about the law, Andrew?" Andrew's response was this: "Many things. What I love the most about the law is that every now and again, not often but occasionally, you get to be a part of justice being done. That really is quite a thrill when it happens." That's real to me. As a public defender for over 20 years, justice doesn't feel like it comes along very often. But when it does, it's a thrill. And I imagine that all of our award recipients today have experienced that thrill of fighting really hard and really long and losing a lot. But when you win, it's a thrill. Justice and the law are inextricably linked to each other and to our relationships to each other. Today, we gather to shine a spotlight on each of our award recipients and how they used the law to do justice for people who needed help and had nowhere else to turn. Celebrating those victories is important, but equally important is acknowledging the value those individual victories and the work these lawyers have done has for us as a community, not just as lawyers, but as people. Their work moves all of us towards a more enlightened, more compassionate, more human relationship with each other. Why do I say that? Well, justice isn't done in a vacuum. It doesn't even exist in the absence of the shared human experience. On an island inhabited by a single person, there's no need for the concept of justice. There, the sole inhabitant can act, think, and live however he or she pleases, because there is no one else who can be harmed or helped in the process. On that proverbial island, laws and justice are irrelevant, and injustice doesn't exist. It is only when we enter into relationship with each other, one-on-one, in families, in neighborhoods, in cities, in states, in countries, in this world, that justice matters and laws become necessary. It is only in these relationships with each other where we encounter the inevitability of harming someone else, along with the potential for helping as well. And from an individual's relationships with each other, the need for justice is born. Which begs the question that I started with. What is justice? How do we define it? Who defines it? Who administers it? And how well are we doing it? That's a lot of questions. We hear about the criminal justice system, and today we hear a lot about economic justice, social justice, racial justice. What is that justice all about? Well, I've been thinking lately, as I mentioned, a lot about what justice is, and here's my working definition right now. For me, justice is about honoring a voluntary agreement forged between people in relationship with each other for how they will navigate together their own self-interest, the interests of others, and conflicts between the two, including the harm we inflict on others and the harm we experience, to live in peace together. That's really lofty, and I recognize that. And unfortunately, my definition, I do not find codified anywhere in the Tennessee Code annotated, nor cited in any Supreme Court cases, or written into any executive orders. And the reality that we all know is that this country wasn't founded anywhere close to that definition of justice. Whether it was coming to this land and occupying it and taking it from the Native Americans who lived here and were here already, whether it is our legacy of slavery, whether it has been the oppression of women, that kind of justice hasn't existed in this country ever. But it is what we as lawyers and as public service lawyers strive for and work towards and fight for. And to me, that is an important part of who we are as lawyers and as people and as Americans. My concept of justice, as I see it, is that justice is evolutionary, that it can be changed, that it can be improved, and we can do that through education, through action, through determination, and through the good acts of the people who are gathered in this room and who have received awards today. As a lawyer myself who loves the law, I believe justice, as I see it, can be found in our laws by lawyers who are creative enough, brave enough, and compassionate enough to see it there and fight for it, to find it there, where maybe it doesn't exist to the average eye. Our award recipients today are those lawyers. In a society that's become hyper-focused on doing what's popular, Daniel Horowitz reminds us that it's important for lawyers to represent unpopular clients who have important causes. He's not afraid to challenge the status quo, whether it's fighting the Board of Law Examiners, challenging a judge's practice of shortening jail sentences for those who undergo birth control procedures, or lobbying the legislature to remove barriers for people with past criminal histories. More than fearless, he is successful. More than successful, he is compassionate. He sees the person behind the case and the devastation caused by the injustice of their situation. And he doesn't just pay lip service to it, he acts to seek a remedy. Mary Gillen could have taken her interest in tax law down a traditional path of transactional work and tax planning in a firm, but her desire to help low-income individuals led her to start the Tennessee Taxpayer Project at the Legal Aid Society. Nearly 20 years later, her hard work and commitment to fighting for justice for low-income taxpayers has had not just an impact locally, but nationally. And she remains inspired to continue that mission. And Alex Spada worked more than 240 hours for the Tennessee Alliance for Legal Services in just 6 months as a full-time law student at Belmont. She continues to pursue her vision of justice in her small firm practice that she started with her law school roommate, taking court appointments and representing those who often, as she puts it, just want someone to listen to them and to try and to fight for them. In Alexa's words, a lot of people forget how privileged a law degree makes you. We have a duty to do what we can to give back. And then, of course, Alan Ramser, who I will tell a personal story about. When I was a brand new public defender and thought I knew everything, I went down to the legislature one day and ran into Alan Ramser there, and he was so kind to me. I was so naive and didn't really know who he was, and I have since come to learn what a kind, smart, committed, knowledgeable person he is, who took a very young public defender aside and helped me figure out that he was all of that and did it with humility and grace, and taught me so much. And I have so appreciated as the public defender that Alan was committed in a way I never realized to the cause of indigent representation, in a way that a TBA director doesn't have to be. You know, the cause of indigent criminal defense isn't always the mission of a bar association. But I always believed that it was part of Alan's mission and that he brought that to the TBA. And so I'm grateful for that and for all of the support that the TBA has lent to the cause of indigent criminal defense, including up to the Indigent Representation Task Force and pushing those recommendations forward now. All of these lawyers' actions, and frankly Alexa's words, remind me that as lawyers, we all occupy a special and privileged place when it comes to justice. We live in a culture and a society of overwhelming inequality, where the powerful and the privileged write our laws, administer our laws, and uphold our laws. Because of that, all too often, justice can become synonymous with the whims of the majority, the interests of the wealthy, and the will of the powerful. And by that very reality, we have injustice. Today, I'm grateful for our award winners, for the risks that they have taken, the courage they have shown to pursue justice for those who are not part of the majority, for those who are not wealthy or powerful, and for those who have suffered injustice through their relationship with me, with you, and with all of us. These lawyers are using their education, their talents, their determination, and their vision of justice in service of others, and in service of the ideal of justice. In doing that, they are examples and inspiration to all of us, and they demonstrate to us the benefits that come from recognizing the humanity of those who are not favored by society. I urge each of you as you leave today to think about justice in your own life, to think about how you define justice, where you see justice and where you see injustice. As you take stock of how well you think we are doing justice, I think you will agree with me there can be no doubt that our honorees today are doing it well, and we are all the beneficiaries of their contributions. Thank you.
Dawn, thank you really a lot. You know, I think, certainly speaking for many of the lawyers in the room, I think you opened our minds a little bit on that question of what is justice. I also think I was wrong, by the way, in introducing her. I don't know of any sense in the word in which Dawn Diener is retiring. I don't know what her career plans are, but, you know, I think we're all going to hear more about her.